Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 245. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the morning of Saturday, November the 27th, from the James Strong Studio in Western St. Charles County. 2 days after Thanksgiving, we're having a podcast, and we like to be thankful for the things that we're given, the things that we have. But then we also want to review the things that we're given, the things that we have. And what better individual to discuss the things going on in our world today but James Greyfalcon. Greyfalcon, welcome back to the James Strong Show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Hey, before we start, I do want to congratulate you, pardon me, on your return to terrestrial radio. I heard you this morning or earlier this week on Jamie Allman's show. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks. It was the first time in about, it's over 4 years I working with Jamie. We discussed it a few times, and I wasn't able to do it at first, and then I was able to do the early window, and then I decided to do it. I had, some stuff I really wanted to, engage on this issue with the Kyle Rittenhouse and the stuff going on in the world. And that was a great opportunity.
Well, Jamie's a smart man, so I assume he's going to do the smart thing and have you back, correct?
Actually, yeah, we are talking about maybe working that time slot a little bit more.
Outstanding.
So,
outstanding.
So yeah, hopefully we can make something work out.
Okay, I hope so too, because you bring a lot to his show, and I think he realizes that too.
I mean, I listened to it a while. I was just like, I trusted Jamie more. I was just leery. It's kind of like what we're going to talk about today. I was just leery of the entire industry for years, because I think on both sides of the equation, it had gotten really bad. But I have to say, this is, I'm a Trump critic.
Mm-hmm. As am I.
I have to say, at this point, as crazy as Trump is, Joy Reid and Rachel Maddow on MSNBC scare me more.
Yeah,
they scare me more at this point.
Well,
they really do.
I can't believe that anybody would even take those old hens seriously, but they do.
And it's not just them; it's the people in Congress who are parroting, like Karen Bass. She's a Democratic Congresswoman, one of the leaders of the Black Caucus, one of the high progressives, comes out and gives a statement saying, yeah, Kyle Rittenhouse's mother should go to jail for driving him across state lines with an AR-15. None of that's true. How can you be a sitting congressperson and just make up something like that about a citizen? Well, she should sue her for $1 billion.
You see that stuff all the time, and I don't get it. And people take these sound bites from individuals who should be in the know, and they just assume that they're right.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I've just almost stopped doing it, but somebody throws something out there that's just not true, and I mention it to them in a diplomatic way, and usually that results in they drop me from their Facebook page and they pull the. Yes. That's usually what happens. Now, if it was me, because I've had people call me on stuff, not very often, but say, hey, look into this a little further. I think you're wrong. And occasionally they're correct. And I'll go back and say, hey, you're right. Thanks for pointing that out to me.
Absolutely.
Why would you ever want to be wrong?
I've changed my views on things even in the last few years. I've seen things, I'm like, whoa, that's okay. So, I mean, like one of the things I changed is like the thing with what you were discussing with Donald Trump in the locker room talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that I think that that's stuff that you should be saying even in that setting.
Nope.
But at first I was like, man, what the hell, this dude? But then after a while, I kind of put it, I was like, wait a minute, okay. He's not really admitting to sexual assault. He's saying something that is not a cool thing to say. But they made it like he's admitting and confessing to rape.
Right, and you're
That's
talking.
not what he did.
No, and you're talking about was it the grab her by the pussy comment or
Yeah.
That's and I've mentioned this to many people, and there's even been some men who have denied this vehemently. That's how men talk in a locker room. That's locker room talk for men. That's just
men talk.
What's that?
Some men talk now. Some men talk.
Right.
And you're right. There are men I know who talk like that. I don't think they're rapists. I personally think that's a weird perspective that he had, but it's also a common one. I heard there was a guy I work with today said you got not today, but last month that was talking about. I was working with him, and he said, "Yeah, the only way you can keep a woman is to treat her really bad, this and that." Now, this guy's not a friend of mine, and I don't agree with that. But yeah, I mean, it's just sort of like, okay, yeah, I mean, there's a problem with that kind of mentality. But again, the media turned it into something, and like you said, I'm not approving of it. I'm just saying, what? No, that's not really him admitting to that. Now that that's a big process. Can you amend what you've thought in the past without losing face?
You're exactly right, and it's also a know your audience type of thing, and men are cads. We just are. But you've got to know your audience, because I will tell you that I have heard women talk, and they're at least as bad as men with the things that they say, and I don't think they mean any of them. I mean, I've heard women say things like, "I wish my husband would just go to work and send me the paycheck because I don't even want him around." Now, I don't think they really mean that, but that's just gals talking smack. Okay.
No. In all fairness, Donald Trump has said a lot of other things to give people reason why they should be a little bit worried about him as a man. He has said predatory things, not in a public setting. So that all I'm saying is the things that he said about women in a public setting, I think are more relevant, because he said things I'm like, whoa, like he said something about his daughter. I'm like, whoa, no, Matt, you can't get yourself out of that, buddy.
Yeah, no,
you're on the hook for that, buddy, because that's weird.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So don't get me wrong. I wouldn't want any woman that I just cared about being in a room alone with Donald Trump. I'm just saying, putting context into what's happening. You can't put a microphone over everyone. Like, for example, with the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, they're talking about, well, he did it because there's an audio of him saying he wants to shoot looters. Well, so what? I mean, there's a video. It sounds like his voice, and there's some people shoplifting, and you hear him saying, "I wish I could shoot those guys."
Right.
Well, that doesn't constitute guilt. I had relatives that told me, if someone breaks into their car, they're going to do that. Now, I don't think they really were going to shoot the people, but there's a visceral reaction that people get to thieves that makes people say stuff like that, because people are unhappy about the crime in their community. So they'll say things like that. It doesn't mean that if a guy runs up to you and tries to take your gun after having threatened to kill you several times before, as testified in the trial, which is this Rosenbaum guy, it doesn't mean the Rittenhouse is like this racist killer. It's a complete fabrication. And yet it's not only canon amongst the media, it's actually adopted by our darn president. The president of the United States actually corroborated that garbage.
Yeah, and you mentioned that in the comment that was made by President Biden, and I'm going to go ahead and paraphrase. It was something along the lines of, "Look, I'm angry and concerned about the verdict," but then he did go on to say, everybody's heard that soundbite, how President Biden is angry and concerned about the verdict. But the whole quote is, "While I'm angry and concerned about the verdict, this is our process. It worked out. I stand by the decision made by the jury, and this is how our system works."
Well, that's the second thing he said. But before last year, he wasn't president yet. I mean, in all fairness, he was a candidate Biden. And that's very interesting, though, that you make that contrast. Because candidate Biden wanted to make sure that the progressives liked him.
Right.
So what candidate Biden said was, well, I heard that this guy's part of a militia that's been going in and out of Kenosha, and something about his mother and a gun then he says, I don't remember Donald Trump denouncing any white supremacists.
Right.
I'm like, none of that's true.
Yeah.
None of that is true.
Yeah, you say whatever you want about Joe Biden, but one thing that Joe Biden has done for a long time is he's been a very successful politician, and that's what they do. That's just what they do.
And that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
That's absolutely what he was doing. It was actually a good move. At the same time, that's the problem, is that good moves often entail complete fabrications.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's my problem with the vast majority of our elected officials on a national level out there, is that they say things to butter their own bread, to feather their own nest, to buy favor within their party. And they have to start remembering that they don't work for their party. They work for the people who elected them. They work for the people who pay their salary. And there's only a handful of national politicians that I respect. And one of them is Liz Cheney. I mean, she's having a very, very hard time right now with the Republican Party. She's been canceled more times than Dave Chappelle by the Republican Party. And
her state party no longer recognizes her as a Republican.
Exactly. And her name escapes me, but the lady that they put in charge of the RNC committee head or something.
Yeah.
But if you look at her voting record compared to Liz Cheney's voting record, Liz Cheney voted with Trump far more times than the gal the Republicans embraced.
Yeah.
And they dumped Cheney because she didn't stand lockstep with Trump. Well, actually, she did when it came to her voting record. She just didn't when it came to the nonsense of saying, yep, the election was stolen.
Which was completely unfounded.
It was unfounded.
There's zero evidence of it. And so it's not a party thing. Both sides are making stuff up.
Yeah.
And just standing by it. You know, I mean, and it's insane because most of the Republican Party now is more or less saying, yeah, I don't really think that Joe Biden won. But clearly, if that was the case, you'd be more alarmed if you found out that there was a secret plot by the government and I don't know who. They still haven't said who did it. Because it's not, state parties do not connect. State parties are not connected by any kind of apparatus, or not state parties. State election systems are not coordinated. So they don't even have a theory of the crime?
Oh, they have a theory, and they have a group, the deep state.
Yeah, but that's BS.
Yeah, who is the deep state?
The deep state, and what's funny is the deep state is something in Egypt. It's and actually all the Middle Eastern countries, or most of them probably have it, where you know how like the deep states, well, you know how you have this president, whether it be whoever would be the president of the country, you have the guy in Sudan, whatever, and they get deposed. And then the military says, oh, we're taking over.
Right.
And as it turns out, and you look deeper, it turns out that the military and the security forces were actually the ones in control the whole time. And they just let this guy be up there as president to take the heat off of them when everything goes bad. That's what the deep state is. Egypt has a very clearly in fact, the deep state in Egypt is who America deals with before we deal with the president. And eventually they just said, we'll take over. Yeah. So what's ironic is they're taking an Egyptian concept. It's specifically the deep state. That's what they called it in Egypt. And they were out in the open about it. They didn't deny to people that they existed. And they transferred it over here and said, oh, there's a deep state in America. Well, this ain't Egypt, dummies.
You're right. Well, and the thing about and I used to be and there's some, first of all, conspiracy theories are fun to mess with. If it's about UFOs, if it's about Bigfoot, if it's about stuff like that, it's not a good thing it's not entertaining if it's about the country, because first of all, it's baloney. And the thing that really convinced me, and I've said this before, is I went to Dealey Plaza and I looked at the route that President Kennedy took when he was shot. And I looked at the window from which Lee Harvey Oswald shot him. And I thought to myself, that's not a tough shot. especially for a Marine Corps veteran who
He's
had
trained.
a marksman